A theme of parents being terrible at what they do, if not the parents, then the family members themselves. Some people screwing things up for our own entertainment, and a mother who fails to get past the sleuths of the internet. Hello, my snacks. Welcome back. My name is Jack. We're premiering my, chatbot version today. Let's see how this goes. Spent the last few days trying to fine-tune this fella, but I do warn you, he is apparently afraid of the word live. Just can't fathom it, so be prepared to hear that be pronounced weirdly. Anyway, enjoy. Am I the a-hole for breaking a promise and attending my stepdaughter's graduation? I'll start by explaining some backstory. I, 54 male, lost my first wife when my son, 25 male, and daughter, 22 female, were ages 9 and 12. Both my kids took it as hard as you would expect, and to this day have a poor relationship with both my current wife, Doreen, who is 49 female, and my stepdaughter, 18-year-old Amy. I started dating Doreen about 4 months after my first wife passed. As such, my kids believe I cheated on their mom. Amy was 5 when we got together, and as such I see her as my own daughter. On to the actual story. 4 years ago, 2 days before Kay's high school graduation, Amy got very ill while visiting her grandparents and ended up needing emergency surgery. My wife and I rushed to be with Amy, and admittedly I did not communicate well with Kay. At the time, Kay didn't pick up my calls, so I left her a voicemail and several text messages explaining what happened, and telling Kay I was sorry but I would make it up to her. A few hours go by and I get a call from Kay. She is in hysterics telling me what a terrible father I am and stated that if I did not attend her graduation I would be dead to her. I chose to support Amy. True to her words, Kay did not contact me on the day of her graduation. And when we finally came home, Kay's things had been moved out of the house with a note explaining that we were no longer family and to never contact her again. Luckily, Kay and I were able to reconcile. However, I promised her I would give her absolutely anything in the world to make her forgive me. She said that she would forgive me as long as I refused to attend Amy's graduation, as this was the only way to make it fair. I agreed at the time, thinking she was just joking or angry and would soon forget. This leads me to now. Invitations for Amy's graduation went out, and despite all the hostility, Amy wanted to make sure Kay got one. Kay called Amy later that day and said she would be unable to attend as she and I would be spending the day together per our agreement. Amy broke down into tears asking me why I was missing her graduation. I assured her I was not and that I would speak to Kay. Later I explained to Kay that I simply could not miss Amy's graduation. Kay launched into a tirade about how I was a liar and a petulant butt-farting poop head and how could I do this to her again. I told her that we would talk when she calmed down and she said we would never talk again. My son and several of our extended family have all taken Kay's side, saying I didn't see how hurt she was at graduation. My wife believes I am the most stinky of booty holes for even promising that in the first place, as I should have known it would only upset one or both girls. And Amy is just sad and confused, wondering why Kay hates her. I know keeping my promise and not attending Amy's graduation is probably the only way to salvage my relationship with Kay. But no matter how I look at it, I would feel like I'm punishing Amy for having a medical issue. So am I a poo-poo head. So on one hand, undoubtedly the father here absolutely screwed up his first daughter, but also to punish the other girl as a what? Revenge? It's not her who screwed things over, it's your father. I don't see why she should have to suffer by losing her dad. At least in the same context, I mean, if anything, your first daughter should understand how much it feels important for you to go to the graduation. Which I think just further points out how she's being rather petty and trying to put revenge onto Amy instead of the father. People's thoughts? Everyone sucks here. You made a stupid promise that you knew you wouldn't keep. Kay is making a power play to control you and get you to hurt Amy for no reason. But you choose not to be a parent to let her do it. And at first glance, it seems like that is the consensus, that everyone thinks everyone in this situation is being a piece of schmidt, and it's not just the father here who's failed, though some do stand fully on the side of the father, saying, yeah, this daughter is being so childish. It's one thing to be hurt by your father, it's another to try and put that pain onto other family members as a what? I'm hurt, so you all should feel bad too, ooh! Like, girl, Amy clearly loves you. She wants you to come to the graduation, and your response is to make her feel like a piece of work for just existing. Wow, what a great older sister you are. But despite a lot of comments saying Natar, most of the upvotes go to Yatar. You replaced your kid's mum with a new family 4 months after she died. Your kids lost their mum so young, and you don't seem like you prioritized their feelings or helped them deal with things. Instead, you moved on fast. Kay didn't have a mother to attend her graduation, and she needed you there. Could you not have driven to the graduation, then back to the hospital? Which is a very valid point. I mean, Amy had the rest of her family there with her. She didn't need you there the entire time. So overall, yeah, it does seem like this was a stupid promise to keep, but also a stupid ultimatum to give. Either way, Daddy-O's doing his best to try and defend himself in the comments, and no one is giving him any chance to breathe, so what are your thoughts? Let me know. For now, let's move on to the next drama. To a story that's also rather contended. Am I the a-hole for charging my 16-year-old nephew rent to live with me? In February, my 16-year-old nephew moved out of my younger sister's home and came to live with me. My sister has 4 other kids with my nephew's stepdad. The oldest is 8 and the youngest is just a few months. My nephew and his stepdad both hate each other. My nephew had been couch surfing with friends on and off for a few months before he moved in with me. My roommate moved out at the end of last year and I can afford the rent without him now, so wasn't planning on having someone else move in. My nephew has a job and works around 20 hours a week. When I offered him a place to stay, it was on the condition that he pays me 10% of his weekly paycheck. His mom knows I am taking part of his earnings as rent and has no problem with it. However, my older sister, who is not his mom, found out I was charging him rent to live with me and thinks I'm an anal gland. She says because he is still 16, nobody should be charging him rent. I disagree, as he has a bedroom he can sleep in free of charge and where he can get all his food free of charge. But he is choosing not to live there. Instead, he is choosing to live with me even though he knew upfront he would have to pay rent. I don't have any kind of custody and am not his legal guardian. His mom still is. My sister argues because I can afford to house him and feed him, that means I'm charging him for no reason. A thing is I can afford it, but not comfortably, as my grocery bill has doubled and electricity bills have gone up. She also believes he should be saving or spending that money on himself. She also thinks he's not really choosing to live with me, but rather choosing to live somewhere he feels safe, which is not with his stepdad, and that I'm making him pay for something he has a right to. This point makes me question myself, as I somewhat agree. I know he would rather be living with his mom because they are very close, but living with his stepdad has become too hard for him. He would probably live anywhere else right now. I am also the only relative that lives in the same town as his mom, so even if my older sister would happily let him live with her, she lives too far away. I'm his only alternative option that isn't his friends' houses. I'm at the anal cavity. Straight to some opinions. Nata, he will appreciate the experience of budgeting. However, I might be putting some of it away for him if you can afford to. That is, if you don't need the extra loot to pay the rent. If you can put enough away for him that he'll have the dough to bankroll his own spot in a couple of years, that would be clutch. Jesus Christ, is clutch back now? Is that word now trendy again? Now, as I did say, this was a contended post. Info, are you serious or just a Disney villain? Overall, the Natath side thinks that, okay, this sister is complaining, well, why doesn't she just take care of this child then? Oh, of course she won't. She'll just complain about this being immoral, but won't lift her finger to do anything. Besides, 10% of a 16-year-old paycheck is probably like, what, $5 a week at most. If anything, you're just teaching him some personal responsibility and financial practice. Again, if you do want to be the best Good Samaritan you can in this situation, then yeah, put it all into a separate account and give it back to them once they move out as a little gift of sorts. I mean, sounds like a great idea, right? No, morally evil. Okay, never mind. Though reading some of these posts, things get rather interesting and spicy with this story. See, some would wonder, okay, well, what about the mother here in this situation? Is she trying to fix things at homes for him to come back to so he can feel safe at home for once? Well, it's possible, in theory, sadly, that the mum probably just doesn't care. Most parents abandon their eldest from a different parent when they start a new family because that child reminds them of their previous mistakes in men and relationships. But scrolling down this comment chain, you come across this. Fairly certain this is the mother. Read the other comment on this account. Now, I tried to look at the profile and everything was deleted, sadly, but according to some of these comments, it's very likely that someone in this story is posing as OP. Some wonder if it's the mother of this son trying to give the OP a bad rap and expose them as being the a-hole in the situation by making a story and making them come across as more evil than they actually are. Others, though, wonder if it might be the son, as both of the situations seem to be involving him. This one, the aunt charging him rent. The older one of the stories posted whether his mum was an a-hole for telling him he shouldn't date someone younger than him. I could be wrong, but that's just my suspicion. Yes, as they say when things get more dramatic. How the thing does thing. I genuinely can't think of any analogy that represents that, so we're gonna move on. So what was that post in question? Well, apparently it was a mum posting about how inappropriate she thinks the relationship between her 16-year-old son and a 14-year-old girl is, especially as he already had intimate experience in a previous relationship. The mother wanted to know if she was the a-hole for telling him to look for a girlfriend his age and explaining age gaps. Her personal reason, she was 16 when she fell pregnant from an older boy. But the son in that story thought she was being a hypocrite because the stepfather is 9 years older than her. So yeah, I kind of agree. It's possible that it might be the son himself making stories on the internet to try and see if he can be swayed as the innocent one in the situation. But then again, if we think about it, even if that is the case, despite them being manipulative with trying to get the audiences on his side, I think he's still, right to be not the a-hole. I don't know about you, but buddy, you didn't need to put this much effort into this. We're on your side. Overall, it's another yatar. You're charging a minor rent. His parents should be paying for him whether you need it or not, because his parents should be paying as form of child support. A 16-year-old should be encouraged to finish high school, think about college and trade school, and working part-time to start saving. And look, I would agree with this as well. I mean, unless you are genuinely struggling to afford the place you're living at, any money you're making off this child should be coming from the parents themselves, not from the kid. Anyway, that's my pinch of salt. Let me know yours and we'll move on to the next story. And now for a man who thought being an old wrinkly person was going to be sexy. Today I screwed up by making a Star Wars reference or joke with my Tinder hookup. Today I screwed up, so I met this girl off Tinder and we hit it off as she was a big Star Wars nerd. And so was I. At the end of the second date, there was a lot of bodily tension after a few drinks, so we ended up going back to my place. Things started getting hot and heavy and she went down and started blowing me. As amazing as it was, I felt I should reciprocate and wanted to suggest we 69, but in my somewhat drunken state, I went about this the wrong way it seems. Whilst she was blowing me and looking up at me, I did an impression of the Emperor Palpatine and said,
"Execute Order 69.
This completely turned her off, and after staring at me in disbelief for a few seconds, she got up and said it was getting late and she had to get home. OP as she leaves.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Wow, did you change your voice for your impressions, homie? Bold move for a second date. That's more of a, after the first screw type of thing.
Hey, some of us have to keep them laughing long enough they forget what we look like.
They laugh plenty when I drop my drawers.
Honestly, not the worst reaction they could have. Username I pooped my pants. Oh yeah, make her laugh. The more she laughs, the more she keeps her eyes closed to how ugly you are. God, male self-image issues are rife on the internet, aren't they?
Yeah, dude, no one wants to blow Palpatine.
Hey, someone probably did since Rey is his granddaughter.
I'm still pretending those movies aren't canon.
Now over to am I the a-hole for refusing to babysit for my sister despite my brother-in-law having a family emergency? I, 37 male, and my wife, 33 female, have no children. We live in a small, 2-bedroom house with the second bedroom converted into a game room/office for us. My sister, 32 female, and brother-in-law have 2 kids, an 8-year-old nephew and 9-year-old niece. Both are great kids. I love them and would do anything for them. We babysat for my sister and Bill before and had no issues until recently. On April 7th, Good Friday, brother-in-law got a call that his sister, 28 female, was in a near-fatal car accident along with 2 of her friends. She had to be airlifted to the hospital. They weren't sure if she was going to make it, so family members were being called in to say goodbye and support the rest of the family. This happened across the state we live in. Sister texted me around 10:40 p.m. that night, asking if I was awake, then called to explain the situation. She then asked if I would babysit the kids over Easter weekend while they traveled across state to be with Bill's family. I told her no, I couldn't. I work in a steel manufacturing plant and she knows this. I have a rotary shift, and after Easter, on Monday, I would be starting the overnight shifts. I told her that I was going to sleep during the day on Saturday and Sunday to get accustomed to being on third shift. When she asked if my wife would be willing, I again told her no, since she's going to be doing Easter stuff with her side of the family. When she asked why I couldn't just sleep in on Sunday or why couldn't my wife take the kids with her to the Easter stuff, I snapped back at her that I gave her 3 reasons why. That one, I wanted the weekend to adjust my shift and sleeping schedules, and couldn't do that in one day. 2, my wife wanted to spend Easter with her side of the family. And finally, that no is a complete sentence and that's final. She got extremely angry, said we'll talk later, and hung up. They took the kids, and on the way, sister texted me that I'm selfish for not taking their tragedy to heart, for not helping them in their time of need, that it wouldn't have killed me or my wife to miss a day of sleep or take the kids with her. and Bill is mad at us. He prays we don't have an emergency and need him cause he'll say no and he'll want to sleep in. I haven't responded and we're currently not speaking to each other. Going to also add, when sister called, my wife was asleep to get up early in the morning to do her family things. Our parents live in another state. Our other brother lives in another country. I don't know why she didn't call any of their friends when I refused. So am I the posterior for not babysitting my sister's kids in their time of need. So few believe Natar. After all, you work in a steel mill. It might well have killed you to miss a day of sleep. A lack of alertness in such plants is often fatal to you or to a coworker. Others in the Natar army also believe that, okay, why exactly couldn't have the kids just gone with them anyway? If the OP's wife is expected to take these kids on her errands, why couldn't she just go with the family to the family emergency? I mean, their auntie is dying. Surely you'd want to be there to pay your respects along with the rest of your family. Ultimately, everyone's just saying, yeah, look, you work in a dangerous work environment. I think it's fair to say that you are allowed to prioritize your sleep over the comfort of being there for family. On the other side of the fence, though, well, they're not short to quickly point out the fact that, yeah, you say they're both great kids, you love them, you'd do anything for them, and yet here you are not doing anything for them. Well, a bit of a backtrack on your point of view, isn't it? Along with some valid points onto how, okay, yes, no is a valid sentence, but this was an actual emergency. It isn't about them going on vacation or dates. It's like a family member that is possibly going to die. If I were in the brother-in-law's shoes, I would never trust you again, and our relationship would be damaged forever. But alas, I guess your sister isn't that important, nor your niece and nephew. And it is interesting to see the social online etiquette finally start to, I guess, fight back against the excuse that many use that is boundaries nowadays. But ultimately, yeah, that is the side of Yatar, believing that this was a case that was a genuine emergency. You really should have been there for them. So where do you stand, though? Do you think that this, Legitimize? That's a word now, yep. This legitimizes the OP in their defense that, okay, they have a very serious work environment they need to be alert in, or were they just being a really snobby a-hole about it all? Let me know down below. On to a stupid mother being called out. Am I the a-hole for thinking my son should allow me to discipline his child? My son and his 9-year-old daughter moved in with me a while ago. The problem I have here is that his daughter is very rude and he doesn't do anything to fix it. When he goes to work, he asks one of his siblings, usually my daughter who's 16, to look after his daughter, and he gets really angry if I try to discipline his child. The problem here is that my daughter is too young to be doing this. She usually just laughs and says that her niece is just so adorable and she doesn't think she did anything to deserve a punishment, while for example the child told me to fuck off, which I believe deserves a punishment. I confronted my son and told him since he has failed to discipline his child, and his siblings are clearly way too young to be doing this, so he should allow me to help him. He called me a butthole and said he doesn't need my help and I'm not allowed to do anything with his child. So yes, it's a rather short story. You might be inclined to think, well yes, it's a bit inappropriate to shove the 16-year-old in charge of a child that is your ultimately own responsibility. But here's what's the interesting thing. Everyone in the comments is actually on the father's side. They think the mother has no right here. They believe that the 16-year-old daughter should take care of the child more than the mother. You know why? Because she's been deceptively trying to trick everyone into thinking she's innocent here, but thankfully, someone in the comments isn't afraid to expose her due to her past on the internet. As highlighted in this beautiful comment, you're the a-hole. You changed the account and took away some info, but you already posted on this sub with all the story, but were defined as an a-hole. You did throw out your son out of the house at 18 because he chose to keep the daughter that you wanted to be put up for adoption. Then you never visited or even got to meet the girl, that only meet her aunt and uncle and know what you think about her. Now you want authority and respect by someone that you didn't even want in the family. Also, the last time you did punish her, you did take away food for all of the day, after she refused to tell you her age. A ridiculous question to start a conversation with a 9-year-old. So yeah, who would have thunk it? Sometimes the oldest person in the room isn't actually the most mature or responsible. Now over to a story of a man whose generosity possibly ruined a relationship. Today, I screwed up when I invited a homeless person to a house party. Last night, I, 24 male, convinced a random homeless man to come with me to a house party. I was very high when I made this decision. The house party was also a costume party. I had an extra costume, but not an extra person, so Stone Me was like, why not go out and find an extra person? The homeless man in my street was at the top of my list of potential candidates. I approached him and asked if he was keen to go to a house party dressed as a stormtrooper. He asked if there would be food. I said yes, and alcohol. Homeless man was in. We showed up at the house party together. I was dressed as Jesus. White robe, crown of thorns, hippie hair, you know, the conventional version. The homeless man was dressed from head to toe as an average stormtrooper. I encouraged him to avoid removing his helmet and drawing too much attention. A suggestion, not an instruction. I didn't keep an eye on the homeless man for the entire night. He did his thing. I did mine. From time to time, I caught him low-key lifting his helmet above his mouth to eat or drink when he thought no one was watching. Seeing that convinced me that I did the right thing. The homeless man was having a good time and my stormtrooper costume did not go to waste. A win-win. Like I said, I was high. If you're reading this, something obviously went wrong. I found out when it was too late that another person at the party was also wearing a stormtrooper costume. That stormtrooper was at the party with his GF, who at some point confused the two stormtroopers and ended up grind dancing with the homeless stormtrooper. The BF stormtrooper noticed his GF enthusiastically rubbing her butt on another person's crotch and wasted zero time introducing his fist to that recipe. I was not there to witness what happened in person, and even if I was, I doubt I would have been sober enough to realize what was going on. I've heard more than one version of the story. Some say the two stormtroopers fought each other until the unknown stormtrooper lost the fight and ran away. Others say the unknown stormtrooper won the fight and then ran away. That being said, everyone agreed that one of the stormtroopers did indeed run away. No one knows it was my stormtrooper who ran away with my costume. I really like that costume. Now I might never see it again.
So, if I get this straight, you gave a hobo a great night with raunchy dancing, free food and alcohol, and new clothes. Homie is ready to fight for the Empire.
Yeah, the US military has gotten a lot more, offering a lot less.
Now over to a peculiar birthday story where you kinda hope they do sabotage and ruin the whole event. Would I be the a-hole for not attending my twin brother's surprise birthday dinner when I was only invited as a guest? So I'm a twin, my brother and I hang out all the time and we are super close. In a few days it's our 25th birthday. We share the same friend group and we're all really close and have been since school. He has a close group of girlfriends, about 5 of them who I have also known for many years. I would class them as being closer with him in recent years, but we are all still good friends and socialize often together. Now, I have been added to a group chat labeled my brother's name Surprise Dinner. It's a surprise birthday dinner for my twin brother organized by one of the girls in that group. But they have invited me as a guest. One of them also said in the group that it would be nice to see me as well, so I just feel like an afterthought. I wouldn't really have minded if the girls wanted to organize a surprise birthday evening exclusively for my brother and themselves, but they have also invited my partner and some of my brother and I's closest friends. This feels inconsiderate and quite upsetting as I can't understand why I would be invited to my literal twin brother's surprise birthday dinner with me only invited as a guest, as it is also my birthday involving all of our friends. My girlfriend also found this action to be extremely rude and wondered why this girl didn't just reach out to her. Then they could have organized a surprise involving both of us instead, or have just involved both my brother and I and left the surprise element out of it. In the chat it is clearly stated that we are all to arrive at one time while my brother is due to arrive 20 minutes later. The thought of attending makes me feel weird because it's just a celebration for his birthday when him and I are literally born on the same day. This isn't new information to the organizer. Also, every year my brother and I do something together because we want to and because we have the same friends. Last year our friends and my girlfriend set up a massive dinner for our birthday to which everyone was invited, including the girl group. So now I'm at a crossroads. I don't know whether or not to attend. On one hand, if I don't go I will feel left out because our mutual friends are going. But on the other hand, if I do go, I will feel like I am letting myself be disrespected and I will likely feel uncomfortable as it feels like only my brother is being celebrated. So, would I be the butthole if I took a stand and didn't go?
People's thoughts?
Nata, I would not go.
Do something with your brother earlier that day, then treat yourself to something special with your girl later on. And you might want to look into getting a new group of friends.
Are you sure they even like you?
Others think you must clearly organize something with your brother for that evening.
That forces someone to tell your brother that he can't go with you since they have organized a surprise party for him alone. Or they don't, and you have a good evening with your brother.
Yeah, just say, sorry, I am celebrating my birthday and I can't make it.
Not the a-hole. Because if there's one thing the internet supports, it's sabotaging things for our entertainment.
But seriously, how do you react to this? To know that they're celebrating this event that literally it biologically includes you. I'd have half the mind to think that they just panicked. They freaked out realizing the just complete obliviousness to the fact that, hey, his twin brother would have the same birthday. And so, yeah, now they're kind of just doubling down on this in hopes that they can kind of just brush it off as a happy accident. Tell me though, how would you go by this? I mean, would you even stick by your friends in this situation? I feel like I personally would be inclined to just be like, yeah, bye group. You guys clearly suck at organizing these things. Anyway, that's my rambles. Thank you as always for watching. I apologize if this newer format is a bit clunky. I'm still trying to find the best way to kind of get through it all without it being just further chaos down the end. Either way, appreciate your feedback. I will continue to work on this to make it nice and perfected so it's still as enjoyable as ever. In the meantime, though, you be good, love your faces, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.